What's going on, football fans? It's me, J.R. Clark, back again with another Pound for Pound ATL Live, joined as always by my co-host, Jonathan Holder. Jonathan, what's up, brother?
Man, I all I can tell you is that I feel much better than the Carolina Panthers defense after they tried to tackle Tyler Algier.
Oh, dude, that's
Feeling
that's a
feeling great.
that's a beating that I would not want by any stretch of the imagination. Trying to tackle that little ball of boulder is not something I envy.
Yep,
Um,
bowling ball. What was it? What was it? The bowling ball of razor blades.
yeah, so like,
Is what
yeah,
I think that's what Arch said it was on the broadcast.
yeah. So, obviously, we are coming at you like first in the NFC South. First time in a long time that I can remember that we have won 3 games in a row, and it just so happens to be 3 games in a row against the NFC South,
Yep.
which is awesome, which is, fun to, like, wear my Falcons stuff with pride in, these past few weeks, and be able to, like, you see the guy walking by you or whatever, and he's got a Falcons thing, you give him that nod, like, yeah, and that's fun. It's something we haven't felt in quite a while.
So we got a brand new supervisor at work.
Okay.
Um, he's actually worked with us for a while as a contractor supervisor, but he got brought in as a actual associate now. So he's
Oh, there you go.
working with us. And he's on my team, and I'm assuming since we played a little game like team building thing, and his nickname was Who Dat. I
Oh,
In the spirit of being professional, it has
uh-huh.
been one of the hardest things in my life to not
Not give old boy a hard time.
just dog him about the Saints right now.
Oh, yeah.
So hard.
They're in it bad right now. They are in it bad right now.
Yeah. And
Ah,
there were so many people that were like after Carr went out. I know we're getting back on track here in just a second, but there were so many people. I remember it was not this past weekend. It was weekend before. The Saints were playing Kansas City. Carr goes out with an injury, and then Hayner comes in, and everybody and you look on their forums. You look all it. Where's Rattler at?
right.
Why is Rattler the emergency quarterback? This and that and the other. And then they saw that Rattler was gonna be the starter this week. And the lead up to it was I mean, yeah, there were some people that were like trying to tamp down but man, a lot of their fans were just like Rattler. They were us 2 years ago with Riddler.
Yeah. Yeah, with Ritter.
That
Yep.
Ritter with
Mhm.
Ritter, and
Hey,
so
look,
yeah, it was
fan
oof.
fandom is the weirdest disease in the world. And I wanna get into that for here in just a second. But before we get into that, we might as well get into this. Like I was saying, fandom is such a weird thing to me. And this saying this as a guy who obviously is knee deep in, like, being a full on fan of the Atlanta Falcons, right? But on the outside looking in, it's like, why would you ever be a fan of anything, especially of things that you can't control? You know, and it's such a strange thing, and it's not even limited to just sports. Like, you have, like, fandom with entertainment, like, with the, like, Star Wars, nerds and, Star Trek nerds and, whoever that's 2 fandoms that come to mind right off the top, but I'm sure there's plenty of more out there, like Game of Thrones people who, like, set up a whole room to look like, Game of Thrones stuff, and then you have, uh and I lump this in there too. You have, like, political fandoms where you're unwilling to see, like, any, like, fault of your team, so to speak, and it's such a weird thing. And watching the Saints, Chris says, Did you call who you calling a nerd? All of us, Chris. We're all nerds, okay? From
Yes.
in one shape, form, or another. We are
I mean, I
all.
happen to be like a multi nerd,
Oh, dude, I'm a nerd on so many different levels. As in, within arm's reach of me is like a plethora of anime little figures and a set of like a D20 dice set for D&D. No, I'm
Yeah.
nerd all day. Okay, so but as you were talking about with the Saints on the outside looking in, that was so us with Ritter. And
Yeah.
that was so us trying to convince ourselves that he was going to be the next guy. And they were doing like I saw articles saying, oh well, if Rattler plays well, Ritter might not or Carr may not get his job back. And I'm like, I don't know, you're paying Carr an awful lot of money to not be the starter in that sense. If Deshaun Watson is still getting play, and they're not turning to Jameis Winston basically because of money, then I don't see how you could,
I
you
heard a
know,
stat. I heard a
yeah.
stat over the weekend that was almost unbelievable in how bad it is from a QB perspective for
All right.
Deshaun Watson. That was he is. I want to say at least at the time that I heard it, might be worse since then. Maybe he broke the streak. I don't know. By the time I heard it, he was for the last 26 when it came to third down conversions.
Oh yeah, dude is like, I
Ooh.
one of our biggest shows that we've ever had was when it really looked like we were going to get Deshaun Watson here. There was over 400 something people in the chat. It was one of the few times that I could not keep up with how fast chat was going. And I remember thinking, okay, if he comes here, I'm like, I understood why they were going after him from a football perspective, but I so did not want him here. Like
Yeah,
I
no.
so did not want Deshaun Watson here. And I even said, I was like, all right, fine. If he gets traded here, then I'll root for him or what have you. But almost weekly, I think to myself, man, I am so glad the uh the Cleveland Browns came in at the last minute and offered that contract. Because as Dre Murray says, I'm so freaking glad we dodged the bullet with Deshaun Watson. Yeah, that's exactly what it turned into. That dude has been atrocious
Yeah.
from
Like
go.
every now and then. Well, I'll say this: last year at least, I haven't paid that much attention this year. But I know last year there were at least glimpses. Like you would see flashes of that's the reason why you wanted Sean. Like you would see some of the flashes of his old play. But this year so far as I can tell, like there's been none of that. Like nothing has gone right for them at all in that respect.
Oh yeah, no, nothing. And it's so crazy to think how an organization can continuously be bad in that sense. Like, and especially when you have the glaring thing of the glaring contrast of Baker Mayfield and Deshaun Watson. And
Yeah,
the fact that Baker, other than the fact that he's in our division, I hate that part of it. But like the fact that he's playing the way he's playing, and Deshaun's playing the way he's playing, and it's just like it's insane.
could you?
There's two franchises that could have had Baker,
Yep.
or that did have Baker. And that's crazy. Uh,
But could you imagine? Could you now? Grant, I'm not saying that he would be as good as he is now because apparently whatever happened when he made his layover in LA before he got to Tampa Bay really like changed him in fundamental ways. But like, could you imagine the current Baker Mayfield in Cleveland with some of the weapons they've got? Well, they've got rid of one of them today.
right.
But the weapons they had, plus the defense, which is still really good. It's just their offense is like
So
anemic as
bad
all
that
hell.
yeah.
But could you imagine Baker Mayfield, the Baker Mayfield from Tampa Bay right now, playing with on that team? Like that team will be so much different than it is right now. So
Yeah.
much different.
Yep. I mean, and the fact, and the way everybody's like, "Oh, I can't believe they didn't keep Joe Flacco." They couldn't keep Joe Flacco, and the reason why I say that is because the fact that he played the way he played and got them into the playoffs. Like, if you were going to keep Deshaun Watson on the team, you couldn't keep Joe Flacco
Well,
because
that
it'd
like
be instant like BS and instant drama. Like knowing that the guy got you to the playoffs is sitting on the bench, yeah. I'm This is one of those
that.
deals where I'm pretty sure at the end of the year, Kevin Stefanski gets fired, and it's going to be a BS firing.
Oh yeah, that argument you were talking about, the BS argument of like having Flacco sit while this guy who got you to the playoffs last year and played really good is now sitting on the bench because you paid this guy 230 guaranteed $1 billion. They're going to have that conversation now in Indianapolis because
Oh yeah,
they're probably going to start. And look, there's a big difference between Deshaun Watson and Richardson. Richardson has some excuses as to why he has his overthrows and why he has his misreads, why he has all the things that he has because he's a young guy. He's a young guy,
right. He's a
new
young
to the
guy. He
league.
hasn't had a ton of starts, even in
Right.
the collegiate level.
Right.
He
So
didn't have a ton of starts.
you've got to see what he's got, right?
Yeah, but you at this point, you know what you got in Deshaun Watson.
I mean,
You know what you got in Deshaun Watson.
if you don't know what you have in Deshaun Watson by this time, I don't know if you're ever going to really know what you're going to get from Deshaun Watson. Other than we paid a boatload of money, we have to play him.
Yeah, yeah. And then the way they've redone the contract, it's not that they can't get out of it anytime soon.
Nope.
Not without taking on a ridiculous amount of dead money. But anyway, y'all didn't come here to listen to This Ain't a Browns podcast. This is a
This
Falcons
is a
podcast.
around the NFL section of the podcast, man.
But now, time for everybody's favorite segment and favorite section. It is, I don't have no kind of theme music, but we're going to do Ballos and Follows.
Before we do that,
Yes.
I want to. One of the questions we usually ask that you usually ask me, I'm going to turn this around and ask you early on, and that is, come Sunday around 7:30, game's over. What was your thoughts immediately after the game?
Okay. So my thoughts immediately after the game was, I'm glad we were able to blow them out. And what I mean by that is you had a 3-score lead, by the end of the game. So that was really good. There was still some concerns even after this game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Like I was thinking, I was like, what do we do well defensively? And it's not stop the run, which I actually kind of thought was going to be our calling card, with the way they poured into the defensive line, but it was definitely not stop the run. And we don't get after the quarterback. Uh, which is a problem. Especially with as bad of an O line as Carolina has in the passing. And the only thing defensively that we do well, and Fred has said it right before I did, is we get turnovers, and we get timely turnovers. So right now, 6 games into the season, that's the defensive calling card. Because as I was telling you, right before that AJ Terrell interception, which, hey, thank God he actually caught one.
Yep.
Because that was his first interception since 2022, which is kind of crazy.
No, 2021.
Was it 21? I thought it was 22.
It was the last. I think it was the last game of 2021,
which would be
which sorry of 20. It was January of 2021.
Okay, well somebody in the comments will check us if we're wrong, but either way, it's been a ridiculously long time.
Yes.
Until that turnover, Until that interception, I was like, all right, this is starting to get ridiculous. You know, it was 28-20 and they're driving the ball. And it's like, come on, guys. They shouldn't be moving the ball like this, in my opinion. Not especially after. Now, granted, they're at home. It's a division game. Those are always a little wonky. But they were only able to put up 10 points against the Bears. And our defense isn't as good as the Bears, but I felt like it was better than if they had went down and scored, giving up like three or four touchdowns. At that point, I was starting to get a little, and then obviously AJ gets the interception that stops them scoring. We go down and score again, which I'm glad to see that only one time so far this season we have scored less than 20 points. I don't know if
Yeah, that
anybody
was
has caught that.
game one. Yeah.
Yeah, game one we scored under 20 points. Every other game we have scored over 20 points. In the past two games we have scored over 30 points, which we couldn't do it all last year. So these past three games, you start stringing this stuff together, you've won in three different ways. Like the first game, you win with no offensive touchdowns. Your defense comes up big, special teams comes up big. Offense is still able to move the ball. They just weren't able to score any touchdowns. Then you go into the Thursday night game, 500 yards passing, okay enough run. Like I think you're right around 100 yards total running. Maybe I might be wrong on that. I probably am wrong on that now I'm thinking about it more. But
I think it was like 73, 75, something
right,
like that.
they were still running like effectively when they did run. They just didn't have as many runs. So, anyway, and then you come into this game and you're like, okay, you can't live on 50 passing attempts a game, especially not with an elder statesman quarterback.
I
Like
mean,
you
let alone
don't,
60.
yeah, right. You don't want to live in that realm. And if that's the way you're going to have to win games, that's no bueno, you know.
Yeah.
So to come into Carolina and be able to get almost 200 yards on the ground, like both like with passing involved, both they got well over 200 yards. It showed that you can win in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And that was what I came out of this game with going, okay, cool. We're showing that we're more of a complete team each week. Now, that's on the offensive side. Now I need the defense to start making some strides. But what was your oh, hold on. What is that? Four different ways. But the way we won against the Eagles. Oh, the last second touchdown, I guess is what you're meaning there, Millie. Um Well, what I meant was when I meant three different ways is like you were able, like you had a passing attack win the game, you had a rushing attack win the game, and you had like defensive special teams win the game. That's kind of more of what I was
Yeah.
talking about in three different ways. Like you don't have to rely on one way. So that was kind of what I was more or less referring to. But what was your like 30,000 foot view? I guess I need to take this off since we're ha. Anyway, so what was your like 30,000 foot view of the game?
I was ecstatic we won. I was ecstatic that we won by multiple scores.
Right.
Was really happy with the way I mean, I saw somebody. Let's see. Where was it at? I can't find it at the moment, but there was somebody commented earlier, like we've got to figure out a way for the defense to. Well, I say we had to figure it out like the first few weeks of the season. Like the defense played really, really good through the Kansas City game, like just from start to finish. Because I mean, even in Kansas City, we only gave up what 17 points, 18 points, something like
Right.
that.
Sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Willie Doc's getting some throwback there.
My Falcon Eye view on this.
That's it. Falcon Eye view. That's right.
But since we got into the NFC, now granted, you might say, okay, it's NFC South. They know, they know us. They know our personnel, all this other jazz. Maybe we get a little bit of a thing for like, we get the new play caller, but then again, so does Tampa Bay. There's all kinds of reasons why maybe we have some different issues with the defense starting a little bit slower and giving up a whole bunch of points early, and then going into half, and then they do whatever magic they do, and then they come out, and the whole second half is like, might get a couple field goals, but pretty much they hold you down almost, for the entire second half of the game. And that's what we've seen so far. That's how that's worked out. And if they can consistently do that, that's good. But I would like to see a little bit more like, let's come out and like not have to necessarily hope for halftime adjustments to like stem the tide.
Oh, yeah.
I would rather see a little more consistent play from wire to wire in the game from the defense, like we saw in the first 3 weeks of the season. But I think part of that is just first 3 weeks is defense is already up on the offense, just because that's the way it normally is anyway. But other than that, defense I thought played a really good game for the most part in the second half. We started to kind of get eaten up a little bit in the run game. In the fourth quarter, late third and early fourth, but we were able to do enough to like keep them out of the end zone. And then we did get those turnovers. But I was super happy, and I mentioned this in the lead up to the show. Like this game and the last game prior to that against Tampa Bay, I think is you put those two games together as a defensive coordinator that has to come in here and try to figure out how to stop this offense is going to cause some sleepless nights for some DCs out there.
Oh, yeah.
We've shown that we can win if we have to air it out 60 times. We can do it. Do we want to do it? They probably know. We know. Everybody knows we don't want to have to do that.
No.
But if we do have to do it, we've shown we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've shown that the offensive line is better than we thought, likely much better than we thought at pass blocking, for one.
Well, they're starting to get their feet under them. It took them a couple games. Yes. Obviously, this is where like we make the comments about like playing in the preseason. If nothing else, if I'm a coach, I'm trying to play the entire O-line in the preseason because I want them to start gelling faster.
Yep.
They have finally started gelling. Cousins isn't, getting pressured like he was. There's some stuff I want to get into here in a few minutes, but about the O-line. But let's get into ballers and fallers. So Willie Doc, as he tends to do, always kicks us off with the ballers and fallers, and I got it right here. So appreciate you, Willie.
Appreciate it, Willie.
His baller is Thunder and Lightning, which I'm assuming he's talking about, obviously Bijan and Tyler Algier. Faller, I really liked where he went here. This is like a cerebral type faller. He says, D-line coach Jay Rogers, honorable mention Clark Phillips, side-eye glance Lorenzo Carter. Glad to be 4-2. We could be 1-5. Right. I'd much rather be talking about all this stuff at 4-2. We've said that many times over. I'd much rather be talking about.
We could be the Giants or like the Panthers. Honestly, look like us from last year.
Right.
Now that they've got Dalton back there. Okay. When they had what's his face back there before, they looked just
atrocious,
awful. Yeah. But when you got Dalton back there, Dalton's a guy who can sling it. He's won lots of games in the NFL. He's a guy that knows what to do with the football. He knows how to read defenses. He does more than just whatever it is that the other guy did. But like their defense, not great, but it's not horrible.
No, it's like to me, like Canales made that move to save his job because like it ain't beyond David Tepper to fire a coach after one season
Hmm.
or even partially through the season. He needed to show that, hey, look, I can actually coach. I can, it's just I hate it, but it's it's this quarterback. I can't, like, he's just not an NFL quarterback. So anyway, our baller for this week, baller is Thunder and Lightning. It's
Yep.
Bijan and Tyler. They did some really good things in the run game with Charlie Warner, the way he was doing some blocking, enough to like get some national recognition from guys like Dan Orlovsky. Showing some of the stuff that they were able to do. Um, they have used a couple times in this game, both of them on the field at the same time,
Hmm.
which is something as a fan base we have been asking for. With I know at least one run where Tyler was the lead blocker for Bijan,
Yeah.
and so I was really impressed. 3 touchdowns on the ground, a 2-point conversion on the ground. It was well done as far as the run game was concerned.
Yeah. This reminded me of, I think it was a couple of years ago, but before we had Bajan,
Mhm.
and it was a game against Cleveland, I think, and it was
Oh
the
yeah,
game where we came out in the second half, and they basically said like, "Hey, if we can go out there and do, I guess get 100 yards rushing or something like that, we'll all go have a beer on the concourse or something like that." And they just came out and ran it right down Cleveland's throat. Cleveland knew what was coming, couldn't do a damn thing to stop it,
that's right.
and that felt like this game. I think it took us a while to figure it out, and so I know you had to have heard this where when they went in at halftime, Zach Robinson was talking to Kirk Cousins, and he was I'm assuming they do this every game. It's like what do you like doing? Like
Yeah, yeah.
what
Like what's
you're
working? Yeah, what because Zach Robinson's up in the booth,
yep.
and so
He's
like
like,
you're
you're out
half
there on the field, you're in
right,
it. What is it? What's feeling good to you?
and he's over
Uh,
here running the
he's
ball.
like, I feel good running the ball. Let's do
Yeah,
this. Let them.
yep.
I threw it 60 times last week. My arm's about to fall off. Let's let them
Let them young bucks uh
yeah,
carry the load, and Algier, buddy, he did carry the load on that one run. He got another 20 yards by moving the entire freaking pile.
yep.
Like that was just it was fun to
Which
see.
I've seen similar plays like that in the past. Uh, but a lot of times, what you generally find is there's like 3 or 4 offensive linemen that get behind and basically like carry him. That this was not that. Like, I'm not saying he didn't have help. He
Oh
had
yeah,
help
I mean
on
he had
offensive
some
line,
guys pushing him, but
but that dude was like, he was twisted. Sometimes, like if you watch that run and try to get in there and like see him, he's like he starts off running kind of sideways, then he turns and he's backing up, then he twists again and he's going forward, and he twists again and he's going backwards. He just kept like whatever way he was facing, legs were churning the
yeah,
entire way. I was like, holy Jesus.
yeah, on 18 attempts he had 105 yards and a touchdown with a long of 20 at 5.8 yards a carry. And
Yeah.
not necessarily to like be outdone on 15 attempts. Bijan was only 5 yards short, and he was running at 6.3 yards. Now I know a big talking point. Yeah, if y'all hadn't seen it, yeah, definitely go check out that Dan Orlovsky video um, on Twitter or ESPN. I'm sure you can find it. It was a really good. He highlights a lot of fun things that the Falcons run game was doing, and if you want to thank anybody, you can thank Dwayne Ledford for continuing what Smith had started here. Like you can talk all the crap you want to. Arthur Smith had a good run game, and he couldn't do anything else right, basically. But that he did have. So anyway, uh, there's been a lot of talk about Bijan only being used on like outside zone runs, and Tyler basically being used on like inside runs, and how it's like, oh, it's so predictable and all this other stuff. And I've been thinking about this, and sometimes like the simplest answers are the correct answers. That's that Occam's razor,
Yep.
or even the like KISS method, keep it simple.
Yep.
But what is the best thing that this O line does? Like this O line was built for the outside zone run.
Yep.
So they are at their best, and even with what Dan Orlovsky did and DJ Shockley put out a video today, highlighting some of the runs, like when this O line is moving in as a unit in that zone, in that stretch zone, whatever you want to call it, wide zone, stretch zone, outside zone, whatever. When they're able to start moving laterally and climb to the second level, that's when they're at their best. And so, at least in these early 6 games, and who knows how this game may change their outlook on the run game in general. Um, it felt like, all right, this is the best thing that we do. We're going to let our best back run behind our best plays for the O line and hope for the best results. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, hey, this is what these guys do the best. This is our best runner. It may not be best suited for him, but if he catches a crease, he has the ability to house it. As much as we love Algier, and we love Algier, Algier can't house it from anywhere. Like he has to be he's got about a 20, 30 yard, like real, like window, basically. Like to get, if we're talking about housing a run. But Bijan can house it from just about anywhere. And so if he can catch a crease and get an opening, then I just don't understand why people. I get why people are complaining. They're not really complaining, but it's like, oh, we're too predictable. Well, now you just have to hope that the coaching staff understands that, which they're coaches,
Yeah.
most of them do. Then you have to have tendency breakers. So
Yeah.
that was something I was thinking about.
Which like when you look at the breakdown that Orlovsky did, like the tendency breaker was the Werner motion, the the
The
Ray McLeod motion,
Yep.
where like they don't let they don't let the motion get all the way to the end. They snap it early, and then the motion guy becomes like an inside blocker,
Right.
and they do different things with it that way. And so like that's not something that has really been seen by a lot of NFL teams
Yep.
right now. So like it probably caught them off guard. It'll take some time; they'll adjust to it, but just like anything else. But at the end of the day, here's what I'll say: like a running game, if it's working like it should, if you're doing the things that you're now, granted, I'm not saying that it's all like as long as the offensive line is just doing what they're supposed to do, then this and that and the other. Not saying the defense can't do things to thwart it and things like that. But like when the running game's working, a lot of times it doesn't matter. You could literally tell the defense, "Okay, we're going to run the ball. It's going to go here, and this and that, and that's what we're doing." And you can still do it.
Yeah. No,
Like that,
yeah.
like that, that's a situation. And if you can get to that point, which is what we got to that point late in that game, especially that the Algier touchdown drive. Like when we got to that point, it was basically like we could have told them exactly what we were going to do, and they
there wasn't nothing to do.
and there wasn't going to be anything they could do to stop us.
And that's it. Jay Black with $5, which we appreciate greatly.
Appreciate it, Jay Black.
He says,
"Yeah,
he says, rise up, nice show. JR and Jonathan, our O line does run the wide zone best, but should the inside zone be run just to keep the defense guessing?" And they did. That's the thing is like they ran, like especially if you go watch DJ Shockley's breakdown. They ran counter, they ran pin and pull, they ran wham blocks. Like they mix it up, in varying ways to not be predictable. I think what people were, at least the first few weeks, really like keying in on was like, okay, uh when Bijan's in, it's a pistol look, and it's wide zone. So that's the thing. Um, so yeah, and hey, check this out. I'm gonna wait for him to finish drinking so I don't catch him. We have a special guest, our good buddy Joe Patrick from 929 The Game. Joe, what's going on, brother?
What's up, guys? It's been way too long. Way too long. I've felt so bad. I was telling JR, we'd planned it for me to be back on your show a few weeks ago, and then it's like, you got a hurricane, you got like Thursday night games that are screwing up the schedule. You got the follow-up hurricanes. So there's just been a lot of stuff that's thrown me off. But
hey, perfect timing though.
That's right. You showed up right in the middle of our baller and faller segment. We kind of got to it a little bit late. We were talking about the run game, obviously, and because that was the big thing on Sunday was the effectiveness of the run game. But I was floating out a simple theory, because I'm pretty sure that you've heard the whole Bijan only runs outside zones out of pistol, and Algier only runs the like under center inside stuff. And I mean, it's not a wrong statement.
Mm-hmm.
It's a statement that is like, you can watch the game and see it for the most part. But my theory was that the outside zone stuff, or the wide zone, whatever you want to call it, is what the O-line does best. And so you have your best running back running the best plays that the O-line has, because if they can create a hole, he has the best chance to house it.
Right.
Like from wherever they are. It was just a thought or theory. So like, what has been the rumblings on your side of that conundrum?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll just give my thoughts on it, which are that I do think that the team got a little bit too predictable with their run game. And it's not just the fact that I think people get hung up on it just being outside zone, as if like, you can't kind of spam that, which a lot of teams do. But I think where it was going wrong for the Falcons was it was just like the blocking angles and the way that they actually had it schemed up was just too kind of similar and predictable time to time. And I think that, a lot of guys, I think I saw Dan Orlovsky talking about it, doing a breakdown on Twitter today, kind of talking about these different wrinkles that were really noticeable in this game. And Charlie Warner has a big part to play in that. And, I think there's an interesting conversation to have at tight end where it feels to me like Zach Robinson, like in terms of like who he kind of would like as a tight end in general, he would like more of a Charlie Warner type. That's kind of what we'd seen them use in LA. And he's clearly like, making it work with Pitts. He's been creating some explosives, and we can, that's a conversation as well. But I really thought that you were able to see Charlie Warner's value in a big way for really maybe the first time in this game against the Panthers. And that to me was the big difference, was just the small wrinkles in the scheme and the way that they were blocking up the that outside zone. And also the motions that they've started using with guys like Darnell Mooney kind of coming into the backfield, and just those kinds of different wrinkles that honestly can just make a defense kind of pause for a split second, after the snap. Can give you the angle that you need to, seal an edge, and then, springs a run to go an extra 10 yards in some instances. So there's been a lot of consternation over the run game, but for me, it's never been like a five alarm fire. It's just been like we got to figure this thing out. And I think that that's what you're seeing just with games and more reps and them kind of figuring out how to make it work.
Right. And then you're also like, for folks out there, like you have to factor in that, midway through that, you had your center go down, and now you're trying to do this with Ryan Newsel, who I'm gonna go ahead and call it, like the last couple games has looked really good. And if anybody wanted to question the effectiveness of Dwayne Ledford as an O-line coach and being able to, coach up not the star guys, like the fact that we aren't talking about Newsel, after playing against Tampa Bay and then, Carolina, that's a testament to his coaching. So, because I've seen some things floating around on the interwebs of oh, is Dwayne Ledford really like? Is he just a guy as far as like a coach goes? Yeah, he may not be a Brian Callahan as of yet, but I think he's better than a lot of people give him credit for, at least as of right now.
I was looking at some of the stats. Speaking of the run game, I was looking at some of the stats going into the Panthers game as well, and it was kind of interesting looking at the Falcons on some of the more like advanced analytics, where they're in terms of like the EPA, the expected points added per rush, they were not very good in the league. They're still not good. I think they're 24th overall in the league right now. They were fourth last week in EPA per rush, so it was clearly a massive step up. But despite them being so low on EPA per rush, they were still in like the top 10 of 10-yard rushes, or 10 yards or more rushes. So they were still able to make things happen. They just weren't consistent with it. And I think that's why you weren't seeing them able to stick with the run game generally throughout games. And they were resorting to having to throw the ball a lot because it was so inconsistent. They couldn't rely on it necessarily to pick up the yardage that they needed to kind of stay ahead of the chains in certain moments. So
Right.
Hopefully that game against the Panthers kind of gives them some positive reinforcement in the film room and some things for the coaches and players to think about that can kind of get this thing moving in the right direction. Because we know that this offensive line can block. It's the same group that has done really well in that respect under Arthur Smith for a few years. So I think it's just one of those feeling out teething things.
Exactly. King has
he just needs Raheem just needs to say, hey, look, we go out there dominating the run game. We'll go have a beer on the concourse. And
That's
right. That's right. That's right.
King has a good point. He says, I'd like to see Bijan and Algier on the field at the same time a lot, so teams don't know what we're going to do. We might run Bijan inside or Algier outside or vice versa, mix it up. I did see like they had them both on the field at the same time, a handful of plays on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah. And it was something that I actually saw in training camp too, a little bit. And usually it was they'd be in pistol with Algier behind and then Bijan coming on some kind of motion and kind of running some almost option stuff or quick game. And I think that can work. That's not necessarily the Christian McCaffrey role. Maybe that's something that they're having to kind of adjust. Like they kind of wanted to come into the season with Bijan doing a lot more, quote unquote, regular running back things. And maybe they do have to pivot off of that a little bit. But still not maybe having him like split out wide, trying to run a full route tree like Arthur Smith was having him do. That's last year.
That might have been a little much, but all right. Well, let's move on to the fallers. Everybody's other favorite part of the section.
Yep.
And yes, I went with Lorenzo Carter as more of not just Lorenzo Carter himself, but he's in like that play where he almost sacks Andy Dalton, and then Andy Dalton takes off, running for like 20 plus yards or whatever. It's kind of been indicative of the pass rush the past few games for sure. And still, like it seems like Atlanta is destined to not have a pass rush. I am like forever confused how we can have whole new coaching staffs, whole new regimes, all new players, new thought processes, new philosophies, and somehow the same outcome. And I say I purposely, I did not purposely, but I'm going to say I purposely chose the picture of him wearing a number 9 because anybody wearing number 0 should be a fire breather, and he has definitely not been a fire breather.
No, I will say, and granted, this is going against Carolina. There were times early in the game, and there were times later in the game where I did see more pressure was occurring. Like on their first touchdown drive, there was a pass. I think it was a third down play pass or whatever, and we had like 3 guys right in his face. And he just threw a perfect pass to the guy that was open. Is what it is. We had 3 guys in his face. He made the play with the pressure in his face. And I've seen that a bunch, throughout the season so far, where we get guys there in a near him, around him, or whatever, and guys are just making plays. Then there are definitely times where we're not getting anything done. But I for the last few weeks prior to the Tampa Bay game, prior to really, I guess really the Tampa Bay game, like the first 4 weeks of the season, especially weeks 3 and 4, like I kept saying, like the offense was we're this close. We're almost like things are just not quite clicking, but once it does, things are going to look good. And then Tampa Bay is when I think, especially for the passing game, that's when it clicked. Maybe this week was the running game where it really clicked for them. And now we'll have this unstoppable juggernaut of an offense. But the defense isn't quite to the point where it's from the defensive line perspective. I think the secondary is the strength of this team, and that's not me, trying to be like, I am so smart. Everybody's saying it, but
you're so smart, Jonathan.
I know, but that secondary is the secondary right now is the strength of this team. I think once you can get Landman or not Landman, now that we got Landman back, once we get him and we can have Anderson back out there. I think the linebacker and secondary, I think that could be a strength of the team. The defensive line, just I haven't seen enough to even be like we're close. We're always in there. Yeah. It's not there, and I don't know whether we need to. Is there anything we could do without having to give away draft picks to go and get a big time pass rusher somewhere, or do we have to go do that? I just don't know what we do in that situation.
Well, Joe, before I turn this aspect over to you, I was doing some like real quick Googling, trying to figure out like pressure rate on the year or whatnot. For those who are like sacks aren't always everything, this comes from Panthers.com. So they did their like next gen, like kind of what Tori and them do with the Inside Tori's Notebook, and the other lady who does the stat stuff. I'm blanking on her name.
Taryn, I believe. Yeah,
what is it? Yeah,
Taryn Walk. Yeah, Taryn Walk.
Yeah, her.
We laugh about pronouncing her name Whack. Yeah.
Yeah, she does an amazing job. But like they're like the Panthers version of that stuff are crediting the Falcons defense also generated pressure on 30% of Dalton's dropbacks, which was the unit's highest pressure rate of the season. So 30%, but they failed to register a sack. So, that's kind of like where this defense has been. And like I was saying earlier in the show, and Joe, I want you to figure out if you feel like right now, I feel like the only thing the defense can hang its hat on is turnovers.
Yeah.
Is timely turnovers. So what's the like feeling going around, like, or not feeling, but like buzz going around like up at Flowery Branch or whatnot about the lack of pass rush?
They know that it has to get better, and it's just so clearly a pain point for this team, and it's like to the point where you feel like you maybe can't fully consider them true championship contenders unless they address this. And just to put some of those numbers that you were talking about, JR, into context, a 30% pressure rate would place you 8th worst in the NFL overall in this season. The Patriots are 7th worst with a 29.9% pressure rate on the year. The Falcons are worst in the league at 23%.
Good. Yeah, that's what I was trying to find, what they were overall.
Yeah, so they're still the worst in the NFL. They were the worst coming into the game. They have the fewest sack totals, sack rate, basically any pressure metric. They're at the bottom, or if not close to it. So,
out of curiosity, where are the Jaguars at? Because I got my buddy Jerome over here saying, my question is Nielsen a better D-line coach than our current guy? So what? Because I know like I've seen some Jags like really complaining about Nielsen as a DC. So. Where's the Jags at?
Jags are 3rd worst in the NFL. It's Falcons are the worst, and then 2nd worst is the Colts. So the Falcons are at 23%, Colts are at 26.1%, and Jacksonville's at 26.9%. So it's right there with them.
That's
looks like Jacksonville's sack percentage is much better. They're actually converting much more of their pressures to sacks than the Falcons are.
I got you.
Yeah, the Falcons sack rate is rough.
Yeah,
it's all rough. And this is where I don't really know. Like, I was talking to Aaron Freeman on his podcast yesterday, and it's like I'm not like I actually conceptually can grasp some things offensively better than I can defensively, and I actually want to talk to some players about this in the coming weeks, just like understand football a little bit better from that side of the ball. But I don't know exactly how you fix this. Like is some of the stuff fixable without an addition, or do you need to make an acquisition? I don't know. But when you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, which I know for Lorenzo Carter in particular, that's been one that people point to. I think he's like the lowest rated edge rusher in the NFL. Let's see. I just had it. Matthew Judon out of edge rushers is 104th out of 114 edges in his Pro Football Focus grade.
That's great, right? That's good stuff, right?
Yeah. And Eddie Goldman is 72nd out of 121 interior defensive linemen. So and like it's not just the edges; it's the whole line seems gets moved around, and it just sets the whole defense up for a lack of success.
You think it's still like I know that this was my issue. This was my concern coming in with Raheem Morris and his that Fangio, the pseudo Fangio penny front, type situation. You can do that kind of stuff when you got a guy like Aaron Donald. And that's always my concern when you're hiring a guy who had either a decent D line or decent scheme or whatever, but also ends up having a like first ballot Hall of Famer. Like that affords you a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was the big thing when Arthur came here from Tennessee, right? He wasn't bringing Derrick Henry with him. And then you have Raheem coming over from LA. You obviously don't have Aaron Donald's not walking through that door. So we all like during the summer talked about, Kobe Turner and Brian Young, like young guys, rookies getting 9 sacks apiece. But again, you don't have, Aaron Donald to contend with. And so Tony Wright brings up an interesting thing. He says, this is from way, earlier on in the show, finally getting a chance to get to it. He says, the Falcons should trade, second round picks and Arnold Ebiketie to Cleveland for Myles Garrett. So maybe not like necessarily Myles Garrett per se, but Joe, what do you think? Like, do you think that Terry tries to make a swing for an addition to this D line?
Man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, like the easy answer is to say that he's looking at every avenue to improve the team, which I know that he is. I'm sure that he is. But I think it's an interesting situation because they've already made moves at the beginning of this year to trade for a guy like Matthew Judon. And then how does that kind of locker room dynamic play out if you then go trade for another edge and maybe lock up that guy long term? There's contract situation going on with certain players. I don't know. It all gets very dicey. And you're already short on draft picks as well. You only have 5 draft picks coming up in this coming year.
4 or 5. It's not. It's not a full slate to begin with.
They traded the 3rd, and the 5th was taken from the sanctions, so they've got less ammo to kind of work with in that respect. And so I don't know. I don't know what this team is like. What their plan is really. I'm sure they're looking at it. You do. I wonder if you can make a more frugal move by getting like an interior guy who maybe helps you stop the run up a little bit better, and then that opens up some more opportunities for some of these guys to pin their ears back and rush the passer, and you generate more pressures that way. But I don't know. But regardless, they got to do something. I mean, something has to happen.
If I were to take a real stab at it, I would think that a lot of it would probably hinge on Anderson coming back. Because like schematically, they like that 5-1.
Yep.
And they like that mugged up linebacker look. So you don't know who's dropping and you don't know who's coming. And so when you have that, that look, then you can, you have guys like Ellis that you can send. You have guys, obviously if Anderson's healthy, you got him who you can send through, through a gap to manufacture pressures. I did see them trying to get some like twists and stunts going. So, schematically they're trying, but as Fred points out here, why don't we play more man, which would allow the defensive line more time to get there? Uh, I don't know if that's necessarily like playing man behind the line, if that's necessarily the answer, because that just creates other problems, I would imagine.
Yeah, and then one of the other things about again, this is kind of related to run defense, but it's something that I've noticed watching film is that this team just uses light boxes quite a bit. Like they really prioritize making sure that they've got guys covered and are depending on their line and linebackers to make plays. And so far they haven't, and I think that's one of the reasons why they've really been punished for that. If I'm looking at it, the Falcons rank 8th in the NFL in their light box percentage, which is 6 in the box or fewer. So maybe they make some tactical adjustments on that side as well. Maybe there's some scheme things that Jimmy Lake can do and Raheem Morris can have some input on. But yeah, like I said, when I say like something has to change, like I don't know if that's getting a player. I don't know if that's a scheme thing. But as things stand, like statistically, defensively, you just can't really count on a team with this poor of a defense down to win a championship.
Well, and so the other thing is like you start playing man more. There's and then you start talking about like, okay, we're gonna do single high safeties more, maybe bring guys down into the box, have stuff like that, which is great for stopping the run. But the thing that the thing we hang our hat on actually right now, probably more so than turnovers, is we don't give up big plays.
Right.
We make people work down the field the entire way. And look, you score, but we're going to make you dink and dunk us. You're going to have to stay patient. And yeah, you might get a 10 or 15-yard play here and there, but we're not going to give up the big bomb. Like that's the cornerstone of the defense right now. You start playing more man. You start playing, center field safeties and bringing guys down into the box and playing heavier boxes. Your chances of getting up those big plays. Now, I'm not saying don't do it. I mean, you definitely want to be strategic in when you do it, probably, which is a no-brainer. I mean, I'm sure every team thinks of like, okay, when do we come down? When do we, stay, keep that umbrella up and everything? But in obvious running downs, we have got to do something to try to help stem that tide. And are we going to get caught with our pants down on occasion? Sure, it'll happen, but it's just like anything else. Just like a cornerback, what do we tell a cornerback all the time? Like, okay, you gave up a big play, you gave up a touchdown, so what? Move on to the next play. I mean, that's kind of where we need to be at here as a defense as a whole. Is like, let's just do our best to be like, okay, we feel like this is what's best for us right now. If we get caught with our pants down, okay, fine, let's win the next rep. Let's not worry about that one. I don't know.
I had a thought earlier until I like really started digging into it. Is like I felt like, especially in like the Carolina game, you make adjustments in the second half, and we seem like we've been able to stem the tide or whatever. And I was thinking about like the rushing attack, right? Because like you're coming into playing Seattle next week, who have Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, very good rush. So I wanted to look at like, okay, how do we look like quarter by quarter of run? It's bad. It's bad. It's still bad. like you look at the yards first quarter. Right now we're averaging 208 yards. On 47 attempts, and like you're like, yeah, no, we still all the way through are averaging, like giving up big run plays. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not rushing, right? Maybe passing. And so we go down to passing. Now it's still pretty much like gets a little bit better in the fourth quarter. You're averaging 5.7 yards a play. But the interceptions, like I said before, right now about the only thing we can really hang our hat on as a defense is timely turnovers.
Well, I mean, if you look at the completion percentages as well, like those go down as the
Yeah,
game
in the
goes down.
right. They tend to passing wise, it seems to tighten up a little bit in the fourth quarter. But
I wonder if that's partly down to game state, though. I know the Falcons are 4-2 at this point, but they haven't really had like big lead. They've been losing in fourth quarters pretty often, and you would think teams would be trying to salt the game away at that point. Maybe not trying to be so aggressive to the air. Yeah.
Somebody said this earlier. See if I can find it. Okay. Josh Gillum says, like, no need to sugarcoat it. We have a bend but don't break defense. We do not have an attacking defense. Yeah, like right now, we definitely do not have. And I don't know. I was trying to find the quote from like Raheem Morris. I think it was from his presser yesterday, talking about the pass rush, and he seemed to be a little bit more open and candid about like we got to figure out a way to to fix it. And I didn't have a chance to actually pull the quote, but I at least appreciated the way he's addressed the media, about it. It hasn't necessarily given you the whole, oh well, other than like
it's context.
Yeah, but stats are still for losers.
I mean, stats are for losers. I get that. Like like stats are definitely for for losers as again
until you throw for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns. Then he runs up to the podium like, let's talk about stats,
baby. But I like obviously right now you see like the trades that have happened today, which is not something that generally happens in the NFL. You had Devontae Adams go to the Jets because Aaron Rodgers is his best GM apparently, and he just wants all of his friends to play for him. And then you have Amari Cooper gets traded to the Bills. I didn't realize this until I saw it today on Twitter. Y'all realize that man has never hit free agency, Amari Cooper?
Oh, that's interesting. I did not realize
He's played for 4 different teams now. He's 30 years old, and he has never hit free agency. He's been traded every time. I thought that was nuts. Anyway, so then you have Cam Akers gets traded from the Texans to the Vikings. And so now it's like, okay, well, then do the Falcons, make a trade? And we kind of brought that up a little bit with Tony Wright's question, but Chris kind of poses what I would consider to be a more like obtainable or more
frugal.
Yeah, like because I don't see, as you say, Joe, we already don't have any draft picks, so I could see them maybe doing like a conditional 6th or 7th or something like that. But
yeah,
for a guy like Azeez Ojulari or Josh Uche or Zadarius Smith, I really would like to pair Judon back with Zadarius Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. I think this is much more the lane of kind of caliber of player that I'm thinking that they would make a move for, just because of the feasibility of it. The viability of acquiring one of these players is so much higher than. I know these guys are available, like Max Crosby and potentially Myles Garrett. I'm still a little bit more skeptical on that one, but these are obviously just more gettable players.
I will say this: Max Crosby. Even more so in my mind than Myles Garrett. And I like Myles Garrett, but I think Max Crosby is a better edge rusher.
Oh, I do too.
If we went to Las Vegas and we said, and they accepted this, I would happily give up the next 2 first-round draft picks. Like
how old is Crosby?
Max Crosby.
Let me see.
Good question.
I'm trying to, because that's something else that when you're talking about like giving up 2 first-rounders, it better be for somebody that I can have for the length of a rookie contract. Yeah,
just turned 27.
Okay, so I'd be willing to do that for a Crosby because that's somebody that you could potentially have for the length of a rookie contract. So 5 years or what have you.
Hold on. Bradley, he said Crosby shoved his coach the other day. Right, he came out and like clarified, like he was basically like that. The coach, I can't remember his name. He was like, "That's my dog."
Yeah.
That was a love push, whatever that you guys were reaching. Basically, like there's no bad blood there. There's nothing.
Right. No,
it wasn't anything like that. It was him and his buddy pushing, like doing their thing or whatever.
right.
So I'm not worried about Max Crosby in that respect. And I would absolutely give up 2025, 2026 first round draft pick because we don't need it for a quarterback. We got our quarterback of the future.
Yeah. I mean,
And you can't tell me that any drafted edge rusher that you get. I mean, could there be one better than Max Crosby? There could, but you can't tell me there's any other defensive player that you could guarantee in the next 2 drafts in the first round that you pick up and be like, man, I'm so glad we didn't pick up Max Crosby.
Now look,
no.
hey, all right, so fine. Let's say Max Crosby's the target, right, Joe? I want you in on this one too.
Sure.
Chris posed this one earlier. Would you include Penix in that pick?
No.
Would you do first and Penix?
No.
No.
You spent top 10 draft capital on him. That there's way too much invested in Penix at this point. But that brings up something for me that I want to mention, which is that, and let me say, I am the anti-trade guy in general. So like in all my fantasy leagues, people know not to like come to me with the trade. Like, I like my team, I'm in a Madden league too. It's like, don't trade with me. I'm good. I might come to you with something, but don't try to propose anything to me. Which makes me very annoying league mate, I'm sure. But so I that just put that out there to kind of as the premise. But with Penix potentially coming into this team, right tackle is a major area of that they're going to have to address, and it's not just something where I think you can throw a second round pick there and hope that it works. I think that you're going to want to have that be a very, very solid, a player you're very confident in, and those players don't come available in free agency typically. Teams lock up their tackles, so that is just something that is on my mind as well when it comes to trading away picks. Kind of thinking at some point in either this draft or next draft, the Falcons are going to need to, I think, draft frankly a right tackle.
Yeah, because like Emmanuel Brown's like, he says Storm Norton is a better pass blocker. But think about it like this, Emmanuel, and this is the point that Joe's making. Penix is a left-handed quarterback.
Yeah.
So is Storm Norton a left tackle quality blocker? And I would probably say no, that he's not a left tackle quality blocker. Now, do you then trust Caleb McGarry to block the blind side of Michael Penix? And I think everybody would resoundingly say no. like we don't mind.
Though he has been better this year.
But still, you're not going to ask Caleb McGarry, who can barely handle speed rushes, to then block the blind side of your like fresh starting quarterback, whether that's in 2 years or what have you. So yeah,
he could be the best right tackle in the league in 2 years for all we know.
That's wishful thinking, John. I mean, it could be. You're not wrong. I'm not going to say that you're wrong. Like, it is a possibility, sure, but there is also a possibility that I go buy a scratch off and don't have to work again. It's possible.
So McGarry's an interesting guy because I feel like he does get kind of slandered a lot because his, when he makes a mistake, it's usually pretty obvious. Like the way he gets beat against certain players in particular, those speed rusher matchups are usually pretty bad losses for him. But, he is very good in what the Falcons are asking him to do, generally speaking, in this current setup, which is primarily to be, a run blocker that can move bodies in that outside zone game, like we were talking about earlier. I do just want to kind of say, like, I don't think he's a bad player by any means, but I just think that if you're going to go in with a left-handed quarterback, you don't want to tackle protecting his blind side, whose particular weakness is kind of getting blown up on a speed rush, because those are the ones that can get those quarterbacks hurt.
That's it. That's definitely the thing there.
I'm just trying to be as positive as I can.
I understand, John, and we appreciate it. John. Let's see. Okay, so Blizz is asking the very important question: can John Abraham still suit up? I
Yes,
don't
he
know.
can. But can he play on the field? No, but he can still suit up.
He can still suit up. So, and then on the Crosby, where does he rank? I think Crosby right now is
So
like
he has more sacks on the year by himself than our entire team does. 5.5 sacks already this year, 14.5 last year, 12.5 the year before. 2021 was 8, 2020 was 7, then 10 his rookie year 2019.
yeah.
So
He's
most of his career he's been double-digit sack guy.
right, and I think if we get him here in Atlanta with some lemon pepper wings, he would probably just go off. That's all I'm thinking. Really,
Where would you guys rank him in the league as a pass rusher? Curious.
He's top 5 for sure, in my opinion. Because like when I think pass rushers, it's to me it's T.J. Watt, it's I'd say T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, because like Myles Garrett is a complete pass rusher, like because he's also like hell on wheels in the run game as well. Like he's and blocking punts by jumping over centers. So it's more than just pass rusher for him, but like it's I don't know. I'd put him real close with like Nick Bosa.
It's interesting. Actually, I'm just looking at some of the stats now, and because I don't really look at many like individual defensive player stats very often, and looks like he's having a down year. Actually, he looks like he's 15th in total quarterback pressures. He's 18th in pressure rate. I'm not saying that he's not a good player. I'm just finding it interesting.
Yeah.
To see
Well,
where his
he's
numbers
also
are.
like I think he was dinged up because I don't think he
Yeah, I
played.
think you're right.
I don't think he played. He played this week, but I don't think he played the week before that.
Yeah.
He's only
So
played
that might
5
be.
games.
That might be what also is part of what's bringing him down. Oh yeah, like before he got hurt, obviously Aiden Hutchinson was probably
Oh yeah.
like
Hutchinson
#1.
is Hutchinson, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett actually leads the NFL in pressure rate.
Right.
At 19.6. So Will
She needs-
McDonald, I didn't realize he was having such a big year. Actually,
Oh
sorry,
yeah,
I'm
dude.
getting off topic.
No, dude. Like I've enjoyed the fact that Will McDonald because he was one of the people that I interviewed when I went down to the Senior Bowl.
Oh, nice.
And like he was really fun and interesting too. So I'm kind of glad to see him starting to break out a little bit up there in New York. But I don't know. I got a feeling that they're going to rely on the guys that they already have. I just don't think that they have enough capital to really be making any kind of big moves.
Yeah.
Unless Cleveland is straight up and down fire selling.
Right.
And come off as Zadarius Smith for like a conditional 6th or something like that. But
yeah, it's interesting because the way I was kind of thinking about what the Falcons did this offseason in signing Kirk Cousins and getting Michael Penix is giving themselves a baseline of being a good team for a long time, and it then allows them to pick their moments, pick their particular years when things start to go well for them, when things are clicking, to really kind of then shoot your shot and double down, and maybe then trade away a draft pick in the future to try to add somebody who can make that push for a Super Bowl run. That's what having that franchise quarterback kind of allows you to do. And I just don't know if they want to do that so early. Like, this is basically year 1 of this like big plan. It's like, oh well, we're 4-2, or we're looking pretty good. Is it time? And I just don't know. I don't think that they're thinking like this is our moment to shoot our shot.
The way I kind of see it is like, especially coming off of this 3-game stretch where you just swept the first round of the NFC South, and you did that with the team you currently have, with missing Braylon Trice, with not getting any sacks on Andy Dalton. Now you add on top of that Derek Carr's injury. So right now, realistically, it's a 2-team race in the NFC South. And that has been what Raheem has preached like since he got here. Let's outrun the South. So I think the goal really is, if we win the South, we get into the playoffs. And getting into the playoffs in year one of this regime is like the goal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah,
Like
totally.
even
I agree.
if it's a one and done,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? If it's
Mhm.
okay, look, we've at least showed that in our division, we're handling business. We're back into contention. Now let's see what we can do next year to continue to add it. I'll just say through 6 games, I need somebody to revoke the license of Dr. Pass Rush because he is performing malpractice out there.
Yeah.
And I am proud of myself for making that joke off the top of my head. So,
So earlier we were wondering like where does he rank? Max Crosby, versus other guys. I'll say one guy I'm surprised, but I'm looking. This is at ESPN NFL pass rush, run stop, blocking, win rate rankings. And when it comes to edge, pass rush, win rate rankings,
oh yeah,
currently Max Crosby is number 6 with
Okay.
about 26% win rate. 5 is Brian Burns, 26%. Jared Verse, I didn't realize he was
Impressive.
doing that well.
don't
He's at 20,
don't tell me rookies are doing well. I'll start getting salty again.
27%. Trey Hendrickson, which is another guy that I think a lot of people have been like, "Hey, try to get."
I don't think the
He's
Bengals
he's
are
at,
moving off anything.
if they had lost the game this past weekend,
Right,
maybe.
right.
But winning that game, probably not. But he's at 29%. Myles Garrett is, I would say now currently technically number 1 because the number 1's out, but Myles Garrett's 31%. Aiden Hutchinson, unfortunately, will be out the rest of the season, 35%, which is nuts to me when I think about that. It's like every third pass rush, this dude's in the quarterback's face.
I mean,
Jesus.
yeah, he's all I know is like if you're Trent Baalke and you got Trayvon Walker and down there in Jacksonville,
Oof.
when like it's just like us with
That's
TJ
bad.
Watt and Tack McKinley.
Yeah.
Like you took Tack McKinley when TJ Watt was staring you in the face. And TJ Watt has gone on to be one of the best, defenders and probably a first ballot Hall of Famer and arguably better than his brother. And it's just like, that, it makes you just,
Yeah. I
but,
was gonna say stop, please. It's too painful to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
and Judon is like number 20. So he's at like
Okay.
16%. He's at like
That makes me feel better.
16% win rate. So, it like I see Judon winning more often than I see anybody else. I think Grady Jarrett's like 17th as far as defensive tackles go. 15th,
the problem is
like
like with our guys is it's not like we're not able to make teams pay for doubling Judon or doubling Grady. Like Grady will have a monster play like he did in Carolina where he just about, took the handoff for, and but then it's, it's we're going to double him and we can't make them pay for doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Hopefully they can get it schemed up and get it going in the right direction.
I noticed, speaking of that, I noticed the Panthers, their 3 highest PFF grades from that Falcons game were their center and their 2 guards. Their interior offensive line was just having their way with the Falcons.
Oh yeah. And it's like, it makes you really want to scream because, you have Eddie Goldman and like second week in a row that Contavious Street was inactive for Brandon Dorless, or not Brandon Dorless, but Rook Ororo. And it makes you wonder, like, does Brandon Dorless get a shot? If we're still not able to generate anything, do we finally see him get out there? Because right now, AK and Lorenzo are like not really impressing me whatsoever.
It makes me really wonder what could have been with Braylon Trice if he had been if he had gotten through the preseason, gotten into the season, because we were hearing a lot of really good things about him. The Rook actually, he got a few more snaps than he did the previous week. He got like 18 or 19, but of those, like 15 of them were on passing downs, which is kind of where he still needs to develop a little bit better. The running game is where he's really going to like show his worth early on. It just, when we put him in, we thought that we were going to get runs. We got passes, and he's just not that kind of guy when it comes to the passing game right
now. Yeah, I mean, he did have a pressure. Like one of the pressures that I saw was Rook, like from the backside hitting Dalton. It just wasn't there quick enough.
Yep.
Cool. Any rumblings that you're hearing up there, Joe? Anything that we should be somewhat aware of, or we pretty much covered? Do you think?
No, I mean, I actually wasn't even there yesterday. I was traveling back from Charlotte yesterday because I was up at the game on Sunday. So, yeah, no inside scoops from me today, unfortunately. Sorry.
Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
I can talk about Younghoe Koo's kicking.
There you go.
Okay, fine. I do have a question. Like,
you want to talk about that?
Yeah, for a brief second, because he's lining up dead on.
Yeah.
With the ball, like, is that something that did they figure something out in a sense? Because, buddy.
Yeah, I was I was talking to him about it. I put a tweet out there. I'm sure some people have seen it, but he admits that he is kind of the most straight on kicker in the NFL now in that respect, and it's a big change. The reason I was talking to him is because I'd seen some of these pictures on social media of him early in his career, pretty much looking like every other kicker, in the way he hands the ball. And that's what he said. He was like, he's like, if someone told you to kick the ball, how would you do it? Like what would you do? What do people do? And he's like, I was like 3 steps back, 2 to the side. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like, so that's kind of where everybody starts because that's just the way it's taught. And I think you get to a point. I'm just paraphrasing everything he said.
Yeah.
But you get to a point where you start to tinker with it. You start to try to figure out a way where you can be more consistent. And I play golf, and so does he. And so we and it was kind of funny because he immediately started making all these golf analogies to the kicking swing or to kicking. And I've always heard commentators kind of make those analogies too. Oh, he drew the ball, he sliced it, and that kind of thing. But I didn't know that that's kind of how he looks at it. But he talked about he's like any golfer will go to the range and fiddle with things, to try to hit the ball better. It's a lot harder in golf than it is, in kicking. But so that's basically the genesis of him kind of narrowing up his stance or his kind of run up was to just try to be more consistent through the ball. And then he said there are some other effects. I didn't put that in the tweet, but he said he kind of likes being able to feel like he's a little bit more square and can see the goalposts when he's kind of in his kick instead of kind of being angled to the goalposts and then feeling like you kind of have to whip your leg and body through and kind of time it up right for it to get to go right. So there's some mental confidence things that approach gives him, and he understands that it's awkward. It looks weird, but I actually told him, I was like, I think that's what's so cool about it is because I really appreciate anybody who does anything, like not necessarily in sports or whatever, but anybody who kind of is able to be effective in whatever they do by deviating from whatever the conventional is. I always find that really interesting. Those kinds of
I always find that to be fascinating. Like Jonathan can attest, there are times that I just want to be different for just to be different. I don't like doing the same thing as everybody else. There are plenty of times in my life that if everybody is raving about a movie, I'm one of those people that won't go watch it because I'm like, no, the heck with y'all, and
he is like the ultimate contrarian.
Yeah, at times, yes, and I'm getting it back from my daughter. But anyway, that's a whole other. That's a whole other But the deal is and it's not just Koo. A 50-yarder is now so commonplace that you don't even you just expect your guy to make that. And we were talking about that at work, but you got the Aubrey kid out in Dallas that's just booming them, and I just wonder, it can't be just as simple as, oh, they've gotten stronger,
right?
It's They definitely had to figure something out technique wise.
I actually asked him about that too, because I saw this chart like that day before the day I talked to him before I went in, and saw like the 50-yard field goal, bar chart just as spiked this year, and it's obviously gone up over the years, and he talked about kickers are like working with again for golf. There's a thing called TrackMan, which is like it's like a device that sits next to the ball and it measures the spin rate on the ball, the ball speed coming off the club face and everything. And kickers are literally using TrackMans for just to dial in how the ball's rotating off the foot, keeping their ball speed. So that's one thing. It's like he can tinker with his approach, with his stance, whatever, and use it on the TrackMan to make sure he's getting the numbers that he needs, that he knows he needs to be successful and to be able to, pull off the kicks that the team will need from him. So it's pretty interesting, just like how much specialization has gone into the kicking game. And it's almost, and when you combine that with the rule changes on the kickoffs and everything, it's almost eliminating the punt. It's like punts are becoming rare now. Falcons only punted one time in Panthers game, was after that opening 3 and out.
Yeah, that was and that was it, which is, between the analytics telling you that going for it on fourth down is they could tell you almost instantly. Hell, there's a Twitter profile that will pretty much tell you if it's worth like every play,
right?
And it's crazy to see that. I did notice that we won time of possession this game, which is something we have been struggling with, and B, we'd only punted one time. Chris says that TrackMan tells him that his slice is unfixable.
Look, you just got to plan for that slice is what you guys
right. You got to play for. Yeah, you got to play for. Here's an interesting thing. Again, talking to Koo, he talked about how like with his kind of the way that he approaches the ball now and the way that he kicks, it actually promotes a slight draw on his balls. So I was like, so does that give you more distance? Because in golf, that if you're hitting a draw, that's generally going to provide a little bit more distance. But he actually says the opposite. He said the guys who fade the ball in the NFL actually get more power, and the reason it's fading is because they are using that more angled approach, and that allows for that that whipping rotation through the ball. And what that does is it allows like the top of their foot to like basically hitting it like with like the laces of your shoe, instead of Koo hits it more with, I'm using hand motions knowing because Koo hits it more like with the actual instep of his foot than other kickers who will use the actual top of their foot with their laces. That will promote more power, more ball speed, basically coming off the foot.
That's
so there you go. More than anybody needed to know about kicking, but I found it fascinating.
Look, hey, there has to be a reason why, like you said, the jump has happened where these guys are basically, as long as you can get close to midfield, you're in field goal range, and that is such a weapon. What are your thoughts on? We'll start to wrap this thing up. But what are your thoughts on the Seahawks coming in? I mean, they are on and they started off hot, and they're on a 0-3 slide now over their past 6 games. They just lost on Thursday night, so they've had their little mini bye to kind of recoup with the team itself having the struggles it has in like stopping the run. Do you think that's what they attempt to try to exploit? Because that's what I'm thinking.
Absolutely. I think it's a pretty bad matchup for the Falcons this week with the running game that they have. Kenneth Walker's ability to break tackles. I mean, he's just amazing, and it's a shame that he's hurt so often, because when he's not, he is absolutely incredible. Probably one of the more underrated players in the NFL, I think, honestly.
Oh yeah, no, completely agree. Like, they have 2 of my favorite backs that have come out in the past few years. When Zach Chardonnay, and him and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, so I fully expect them to lean on them heavily and try to put Geno Smith in some advantageous positions to throw the ball, and they've got dangerous receivers too, like big guys.
DK Metcalf is no joke, and Tyler Lockett and JSN,
and AJ Terrell's tended to struggle with some of those bigger receivers, those big bodied receivers.
Yep, completely.
Well, and what I will say is, while yes, I am worried about the running game. as far as our defense is concerned. But their offensive line is, if you look at rankings as far as pass pro and run blocking, their win rates are like, I want to say like 28th and 26th in the league respectively. So like they're not very good at blocking for the run. They're not very good at blocking pass rushers. Now, granted, the pass rusher stuff, it is what it is. But I mean, if you're bad at, if they can't legitimately run block on a consistent basis, then I give us a better shot at that.
Right.
From a pass pro perspective, they probably we basically even each other out on that, and we'll see if maybe we can figure out some way to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
But the thing that worries me more than anything else is Geno Smith is a guy that don't contain him. He will beat you with it. He'll kill you with his legs. Not from a Lamar Jackson standpoint, but just a guy that's like, you get him to 3rd and 15, let him run free. He's going to get you a first down.
Like Baker,
yeah.
A lot like Baker.
Yeah. But I'll say this: Geno is a guy that, if he gets in a groove, he gets really good. But then you get a little bit of pressure in his face, and
he's liable.
He's going to sail some.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Dre says here. Says we need to make them one-dimensional and make Geno beat us with his arm.
Yeah.
And that's that would be my initial thought, but it's like we can't make anybody one-dimensional right now.
Right. Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's like what you don't want to happen is kind of get bogged down, by allowing these chunk yardage runs and constantly being behind the sticks, and then your defense all of a sudden is out there for a bunch of plays. The offense is having long periods of the game off the field, and if they go have a 3 and out, then that kind of compounds on itself. That puts that whole complementary football thing, and when you don't play complementary football, it can kind of turn into a negative feedback loop as well.
Right.
So you just got to avoid that kind of thing. Avoid it getting messy like that.
Yeah, but I like the fact that it's at home.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that helps, and it's in October, which is Kirktober. We all know that.
I think the atmosphere for this game is going to be crazy good with just the form that this team is in. I think fans fully being bought in on Kirk leading this offense. It's going to be a fun day, I think, for sure. The other thing I was going to say that worries me is just Mike McDonald, really smart defensive coach. Just never someone like him kind of having extra time to game plan for your offense too. Yeah.
Well, what you hope for is the fact that we've given 2 different type of offensive performances. So now what do you try to plan for?
Yeah.
So,
and on the I should say I'm always just kind of looking out for what can hurt the Falcons, but Zach Robinson, it feels like he's just every week this team is becoming more effective, and I think that his calls are working even better for this group of players week in, week out.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I try to remind myself. We are 6 games into Zach Robinson being a professional play caller.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's
after the Chiefs game, people were like, not sure about Zach Robinson in Atlanta. It's like, it's 3 games, guys. It's 3 games.
Calm down, folks. I kind of try to remind myself, myself or anybody that I talk to, I'm like, we are only 6 games into this guy being, a pro play caller. And so didn't realize we had a celebrity in the chat.
What up, Big Low?
Big Low Sports up in the house. We appreciate you stopping by.
Can I get your autograph, sir?
That's right. All right. Well, cool. Well, I think I'm trying to remember the name. I'll get it pulled up. I got invited to a Seahawks podcast on Thursday that I need to read. I think it's the Hawks Nest. So I'll be on the Hawks Nest Thursday night around 8:30. If any of y'all are bored and want to see me do my best job of trying to defend the Falcons in enemy territory, I'm not I generally don't go on but it was something that the guy had reached out in the off season, so I was like, all right, yeah, sure, we'll give it a go, and so hopefully I don't embarrass myself. But Joe, I appreciate you coming on, man. I appreciate you stopping by.
I kind of invited myself onto this one, but
man,
I always appreciate fun talking with you guys about.
It's one of those things where after a while, and it's not like I shouldn't do this, right? But I get to like I don't want to bother nobody. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I was like, all right, I'll let it lie for a few weeks before I um, bug you again about jumping on. But yeah, when you reached out to me, I was like, oh yes, cool, awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, like literally anytime, like if you feel like you want to come on and
Oh yeah, dude.
and
All you gotta do is just shoot me a message. Hey man, I'm bored tonight.
Yeah.
It's Tuesday. I know y'all do a
Whoa,
show.
hang
Come on.
on, JR.
Okay.
You up?
I can turn the lights down. No. Anyway, but tell the folks where they can find you at, brother.
Yeah, you can find me at JAPatrick200 on Twitter. And if you're tailgating for Falcons games, you can catch me on the air there where I host with John Fricky the tailgate show, which will, like, for a 1 o'clock game, will run from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sunday morning to get you ready.
There you go.
Nice.
I don't keep as close of is the MLS season over?
There's one more game. There's still one more game.
Oh.
And yeah, let's just leave it there. Let's leave it there.
Okay.
There's going to be one more game. They could potentially make the playoffs, but it's not going to happen. So
it's not going to happen. Okay. I was going to ask. I haven't seen a ton floating around on my timeline.
If you're an Atlanta United fan, fivestripefinal.com. There you go.
There it is. All right, Jonathan, where folks find you at, my friend?
You can find me at Jonathan M. Holder. Just come on by and say hi.
There it is. As always, you can catch me at Grimm1128, GRIMM1128. We'll be back on Tuesday to talk about this Seahawks win. Like I said, if y'all are really bored, check by the Hawks Nest Thursday evening around 8:30, I think it is, and I'll be talking Falcons with those guys. So, appreciate y'all. And as always, Falcons fans, rise up.
Rise up.